Now he's saying he doesn't know. I think the day of the dual-hatted Attorney General should be over. Attorney General Gonzales has had the view that he serves two masters, that he serves the president and that he serves as the chief law enforcement officer. He serves one master, and that's the people of this country, in being straightforward, in following the law.
I have to follow up, because up to this point you have held off calling for his resignation.
Up to this point I have held off. It was really Friday when I saw this. You have to realize
he called me.
He called me when I began to become involved in this and told me I didn't know my facts, I didn't know what I was doing. It turns out he wasn't telling me the truth then either.
So you think he should step down?
I believe he should step down. And I don't like saying this. This is not my natural personality at all. But I think the nation is not well served by this. I think we need to get at the bottom of why these resignations were made, who ordered them, and what the strategy was. But
let me bring in Senator Lott about that, because you said we need to find out what really happened here. There is, as you well know, a long history of White House aides coming up and talking before Congress. There was a congressional study that was done that showed that 31 aides spoke in the Clinton administration, spoke to Congress a total of 47 times. Since the president is willing to allow his aides to talk to Congress, how do you defend, or do you defend, his insistence that they testify in private, not under oath, no transcripting made?
I believe that something could be worked out and can be worked out in that regard. The question is, are the Democrats in the Senate interested in information or confrontation? In my mind, I think that the president would agree for his close advisors in the White House to testify before Congress under oath. He'd be making a huge mistake. There is a thing called executive privilege. I do think
a lot of these Clinton aides testify under oath.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it was a smart thing to do, or that it should have been done. I mean, I do think the president should pay attention to the precedents they set for their successors. Going back to George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, I mean, you have a right to have executive privilege there. Can a way be worked out to discuss with these people what happened? But, you know, in the end, 8 were removed, and I assume that there was some good cause. But frankly, if you just don't think the U.S. attorney is particularly to your liking, you ought to be able to remove him. And by the way, the Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer. He has a high responsibility to do that job in the Constitution. He also works at the pleasure of the president, and that's the thing with Alberto Gonzales. As long as the president says I have confidence in the Attorney General, he's going to stay.
Senator, let's follow up on this issue that Senator Lott has brought up a couple of times. Congress has been looking at this for weeks. You have received more than 3,000 documents from the White House and the Justice Department. At this point, do you have any hard evidence that anyone at the Justice Department did anything illegal, improperly interfered with a political investigation?
Well, we're trying to ask those questions, and we need to get those people before us. And the first one will come before us willingly, and I think that's commendatory, willingly.
That's going to be the former Chief of Staff, Kyle Sansom.
That's correct. So the questions are yet to be asked. Both Senator Leahy and Specter are trying to negotiate with the White House. I heard Senator Lott say, well, that they shouldn't take an oath. The oath isn't that important as the transparency and the transcript is. And, you saw one right now. If it hadn't been in public when the Attorney General said, I've seen no memos, I've had no discussions, that was a very affirmative and definitive statement. If that hadn't been in public, he would have denied it.
But I mean, doesn't it say something, and we'll get back to that issue with Senator Lott, doesn't it say something that here you are, you've been looking at this for weeks, you've got 3,000 documents, and there's still no there in the story?
The there is why were they dismissed? And, every day something new comes out. The Attorney General in Michigan, Margaret Chiara,
the U.S. Attorney.
Excuse me. The U.S. Attorney in Michigan has held a press conference and said she was dismissed clearly for political reasons.
But that's all right.
That's fine.
My goodness, how were they selected in the first place? And I have found that U.S. attorneys forget quite often how they got where they are. they all of a sudden they think, hey, I must be a federal judge. I'm here in perpetuity. I'll do what I please. And dare anybody to tell them, hey, you got to prosecute more and more aggressively, running around trying to indict some lady that got a grant improperly instead of a billion-dollar contractor. You have questions about that.
Well, 6 out of the 8 of them are involved in public corruption cases. Most of those cases against Republicans. They were removed while the investigation or the prosecution was ongoing.
But the one in California,
or they were removed.
You wrote a letter about her.
Finish?
Okay, sure, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I don't see where there's a large number of them involved in, corruption cases. I think they were involved, whether they were taking action on death penalty cases, immigration cases.
I'll stand by my statement.
Answer your question.
Thank you. 6 out of 7 of them were involved in public corruption cases. This is in particular my interest. I think before you remove somebody in the middle of a public corruption situation, you ought to be very sure of what you're doing and that you don't in any way chill the investigation or chill the trial if it's going on. In the case of Carol Lam, it's a particularly sensitive time. The day after, she sent a notice of intent to file search warrants against Dusty Fogo and a defense contractor that was close to Duke Cunningham. The email went out. We have a real problem with Carol Lam.
Yeah, but
now, I want to ask whether that is a cause and effect. I'll have that opportunity.
Well, let me just say something about that, Senator Feinstein, because we've seen the documents along with you, and you're exactly right. Let's put it up on the screen. On May 10th, Lam told Justice that she was going to execute search warrants for against Dusty Fogo, involved to some degree allegedly in the Duke Cunningham case. The next day, Kyle Sampson sends this email to the White House and asking to discuss the real problem we have right now with Carol Lam. The problem is that a month before that, he had sent another email suggesting that they get rid of Carol Lam. I mean, the fact was they were upset, you were upset with the fact that she wasn't prosecuting immigration cases.
No, I was not upset.
Well, you sent a letter
I wrote a letter of inquiry, and I received an answer back saying that her immigration prosecutions were satisfactory to the department.
Okay, let's move.